1 year ago, I posted a video where I spent a weekend installing a completely renter-friendly board and batten wall. I'm talking no nails, no painting the actual wall, and no power tools needed. 365 days later, I'm here to share what I'd change, what I'd keep the same, and my biggest regrets. Hi, I'm Alli, and welcome to my channel. This board and batten wall has spent a year up on the wall in my dining room. And I'm not ready to part with it yet, but I did want to give an update on how it's holding up and do a little Q&A to answer some of your questions 1 year later. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on this intro, so let's get started and let me share with you first how the wall is holding up now that it's been 365 days since it's been installed. Right now, I would say that the wall looks fantastic. The paint is holding up perfectly, it is still intact, and overall everything looks great, and it's still on the wall, which is a huge bonus. Now, over the course of having this up, I did notice that the removable contact paper is sort of wanting to peel up along the bottom of the wall where the trim is, but I think that is also a good sign because that means that contact paper is going to be removable when it is time to take it down. And also, as far as the paint goes, it looks great. It hasn't peeled or cracked or anything like that. There are a couple of scuffs on it that I need to go in and touch up. I just did those while I was filming earlier today. But you know what? It's better that it's on this removable contact paper versus the real wall in my rental, so that is another plus. Now, since I posted the board and batten tutorial, it has blown up and received so many comments and questions. So I wanted to tackle some of the most commonly asked questions that I get on that video, hoping to provide a little extra clarity on what I did, any other tips or tricks that I learned along the way. And along with the Q&A, you're going to want to stay tuned because I'm going to share with you my biggest regrets of taking on this project. Now, the biggest question I got for this project is why I didn't just paint the wall. Why did I put up that contact paper? And I did explain it in the original video. However, I'll explain it again. The reason is my lease doesn't allow me to paint the walls any color that I like. They have to remain this gray color that they are right now. So putting the contact paper down creates a barrier between the actual wall and the paint. So when I go to remove it, I won't have any paint left on the wall. Well, except in that one little spot where I accidentally got some paint on the wall, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the contact paper is a great solution to allow you to customize your space, even if your lease does not allow you to paint. The most common question I get is why I didn't just build this entire wall on a piece of plywood and then tack it up there with the command strips. And there's a couple of reasons why I did that. The first is that the cost of lumber at the time of making this was very, very expensive. The contact paper is way more cost effective, and I did want to keep the cost and affordability of this project in mind. I wanted to make sure that it was budget friendly, renter friendly, and also I wanted to make this wall super accessible too and not require any power tools. At the time of making this, I didn't own any power tools besides a drill, and I would have had to cut out the outlet cover behind me into that plywood, which would have been way too complicated, something I didn't want to have to worry about. If your space doesn't have an outlet like this, and now that the cost of lumber has come down a little bit, you might be willing to just put it all up as one piece, and I definitely recommend that if that works for your space. Another question I get fairly often is why I left a small gap in the contact paper instead of just putting the sheets right up on the wall, right flush next to each other. And that is because I needed to leave a little bit of a gap for the command strips to stick directly on the wall. My fear would be if I put the command strips on top of the contact paper, it would peel the contact paper up off the wall. And I already had a little bit of experience that this does happen in my kitchen because I added some command strips on my wall there to act as a guide for a cord that I had, and it was peeling off that faux tile wallpaper. So I did not want that happening here because this would have been a much larger scale. Another reason why you want to add that little gap there is it allows you to figure out the proper spacing on your wall for your contact paper between each of the boards. You don't want to have a seam running in between the gap that is right here. because that's just not gonna look good. It's not gonna look professional, and it's gonna look like you put contact paper on the wall instead of directly painting it. Now, how long did this project take? That was another thing that was just commented on a lot, that it looked like too much work, that it would take too much time. And let me just say that the little funny clips that I put throughout the video where I was looking like I was exhausted after a lot of work, well, it is a lot of work. I put those in there mostly just for the humor of it. And also, I will say that filming the entire process is a lot more exhausting than if I were to just put the wall up without a camera involved, because I have to move the lights, I have to move the tripod, I have to move the camera and all of that stuff and get all the different camera angles. However, I was able to get this whole wall up with the camera involved in a weekend. And I think that if you were filming this, you could probably tackle an entire wall of this size in a day or day and a half, just because there is some drying time involved. But the work itself doesn't take that much time. Once you get the contact paper up, it is smooth sailing from there. The next question is why I only did the one wall behind me right here. And there's a couple of reasons. The first is because this was my first time tackling this project. I have never done it before. I had never seen a tutorial like mine here on YouTube or anywhere else. So I wanted to start small, and this is kind of my smallest full-size wall in my house. I wish I had a house. This is an apartment, and that's why we're all here, because we have rentals. Another reason is because the other walls in my dining room either have a window, a doorway, or a weird diagonal, and there's just furniture covering up all the other walls, so you don't actually end up seeing them. So I just wanted a nice accent focal piece in the room, and I think this works really well. But you could also do a full room if you're feeling ambitious when you want to take on this project. Another question I get is whether this would work under certain scenarios or in different spaces, and absolutely, I think this project is very customizable. There are a few reasons why it might not work, but if you're interested in doing this in your own space and you have questions, totally feel free to drop a comment. I'll answer it there, or even go over on Instagram and DM me. I always like to check my inbox, and I am always ready to help tackle your specific design or space problems. I'll make sure that that is linked in the description box. Now, this isn't a question that I get, but I do want to address this about why I painted the wall white. Some people said it looked a little bit boring, a little bit plain because of that. I totally understand and I get it. The reason I chose white is because my walls above are gray, and I just felt like a color with the gray walls would have been way too much to look at, to absorb. And I film in this space. If you watch my other videos on my channel, you'll see that they all take place in my dining room. It's kind of like my craft studio more than my dining room at this point. And more on the technical side, white helps to bounce light, making not only your space just feel brighter and more cheery, it looks a little bit better on camera to have some more of that white bouncing throughout the room to bring some brightness into my footage. So it was just kind of a multi-leveled decision. However, I would love to see somebody do this in some fun color like a blue or a green or whatever, because I think it would look incredible with a fun, bold pop of color. A suggestion that many of you had for me for tackling this project was to paint the contact paper before putting it up. And while that sounds like a good idea, I was afraid to do something like that because the contact paper is sheets of vinyl essentially. And so it pulls, it stretches and warps, and you wouldn't want to end up cracking or pulling the paint, because then you're going to end up with a much bigger disaster than if you paint it directly on the wall where it's a nice solid flat surface. So I recommend put that paper up on the wall before you add any paint or primer to it. And now the question you have been waiting for: why do I regret this wall, or rather, what do I regret about it? And that is something that you guys have called me out on a lot in the comments on this video, and that is not painting the boards before putting them up on the wall. That was a mistake that I can't believe I didn't think of before doing this project. I kind of in my head just thought, you know, put it all up on the wall, get it all assembled, paint it all at once. But I could have painted the boards. They could have been drying while the contact paper was going up. It could have been much better. And by doing that, I would have avoided a couple mistakes, some that were witnessed in the footage of the video, where I did get paint on the wall of my apartment here. Luckily, it wasn't a whole lot of paint. I'm not too worried about it. I might try to find a way to cover it up before I leave. But painting the boards first would avoid that entire fear of what that's going to mean for my deposit. So learn from my mistakes on that one. I definitely will make a video showing you the removal process just to kind of wrap it up to see if this is all entirely worth it. And a final question more that I am asking for myself is, would I do this project again? Whether it's in this room, somewhere else in this apartment, or wherever I move to next. And the answer is 100% without a doubt, yes. I would tackle this project again, learning from some of my mistakes, learning from some of your questions, comments, and suggestions. I would hands down do this again. I love the look of it. It makes me happy every time I come into my apartment to see this thing that I did. Truly, there is a sense of pride for putting this project to work from an idea in my head, and then of course seeing all of you guys love the video as well. And if you watched that video and haven't tried this yet, have been considering it, use this as a sign to do it. I promise you it is worth it. You'll love the effect, all of the time, effort, and energy. And if you have any questions, don't forget you can always ask me in the comments or shoot me a DM on Instagram. If you haven't seen the original board and batten tutorial and you started here first, I'll be sure to link that right here on the screen. Or if you want to see how I transformed this entire space for my dining room makeover, if you haven't caught that one yet, that is linked right here. Thanks so much for watching this video. Stay crafty, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!